Comment?
I just have one.
Alderman Bostick.
Is there any potential tenants for those retail spaces that you have available yet?
Until now, no, sir.
None, okay.
Mayor.
Number 2047, the convenience store owner about 1600 Horn Lake Road, be approved as discussed.
That's all. Anyone have any questions or comments? Anyone?
We're not doing anything like that. We're just the event center that's going to be subleasing it out. No.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Okay, you rent it to somebody and they want to sell alcohol, they got to go through the.
No, yes, sir, they would have to go through, but we wouldn't even allow that. We wouldn't allow them to sell any alcohol, not at all, sir. No, sir. Because we don't have a permit use for that anyway, so we wouldn't allow that. And that would be in the contract as well, that they wouldn't be able to sell any alcohol.
Any more questions or comments? Alderman Dupree.
Now, we're talking about selling, but BYOB, bring your own bottle. They can do that?
Sir, I don't know anything about BYOB or bring your own alcohol. All I know is that in the contract, they wouldn't be able to sell alcohol or do anything like that,
But they can
as far as we're concerned. We wouldn't know what anybody proposes to do or what they decide to do. That's not, I mean, all we would be doing is subleasing it out, just as if, like I said, the person before you, the applicant before you, you know, I don't have any control over what somebody else decides to do, you know, but if they follow the contract, then they would know not to have any, be selling any liquor there or anything like that.
So in your contract, it's going to say no liquor or no selling of liquor?
Yes, it'll say no selling of liquor.
Okay, but they still bring theirs. So if there was an incident that happened, who would it fall back on? Somebody got hurt or an accident was to happen, a fight breaks out, just throwing it out there. Who does that fall back on? The person renting it or you?
That would be the same at any of the leasing places that are subleasing to any particular store, stores up and down Goodman Road in Horn Lake, the same people that it will fall to on them, it will be the same for us.
So I understand what you just said, but who's ultimately responsible for what goes on? The applicant who signs that contract or you? I'm just asking because I don't know.
I mean, responsible for what?
If something were to happen bad there, like somebody need an ambulance, what have you, anything of that nature.
Again, it will be the same as other places that are subleasing out.
That's my question.
I've got a question.
Alderman Guys.
Are you requiring the people that are going to sublease it to have liability insurance or anything like that? I'm not familiar with this type of business, so I know when we rent out our city facilities, we require them to have insurance. You know, say there is an incident there, you guys could be civilly held liable too, because you guys are the one controlling that building and allowing people to rent. So, you know, you guys accrue some liability as well, which, you know, you want to definitely have yourself covered for. So, you know, I don't know if you've thought about that or not.
Yes, sir, that's already been thought about. That's actually a part of the contract. They'll have to have insurance. So, yeah, that's already built into the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions,
I got a
comments?
comment.
Alderman Young.
Only comment I got is, in so many ways, I wish y'all would have applied for your liquor license to sell liquor and beer. That way we could hold y'all responsible for what happens in that building. I really wish you would, because somebody's going to be responsible.
Well, nobody's going to be selling alcohol, so.
That's not what I said, though. I wish you had your liquor license so I could hold you personally responsible for events in there.
Any more questions or comments? Alderman Bostic.
I know you're not going to be selling it there, but it will be served there, correctly?
No, sir, we don't.
So
we don't have-
I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about your tenants that rent the facility and have an event there. The last meeting that when you were here, you told us they would have the option to set up a bar and serve wine or whatever at the event. So it will be served, but it will not be sold.
No, it will not be sold. And at this point, sir, like I came at the beginning, I expressed to the board that we're looking at now not to even have that. So we're going to ask our applicants that come in not to even have that. Now, of course, as I think it was Mr. Debris had said, well, in a hypothetical situation, what if somebody brings, we can't control that.
Oh, I understand, I understand.
But in the contract, we'll have it where we're asking them not to sell that.
Okay, so this actually, conditional use for an event center, we just need to leave the with liquor off of that.
Yes,
We need
sir.
to rewrite that. Is that correct, Chad? And it just be an event center with a potential part-time church?
Yes, sir.
And pop-ups or whatever you were talking about? So just take the liquor completely off of it, so that way we're done with that.
If that suffices the board, yes, sir.
And Chad, can you rewrite that and be another case number, or will it be an amendment to this case?
I would view that just as an amendment to this particular case, as opposed to start again and rehear it.
Any more questions or comments?
Yeah,
Mayor.
Alderman Johnson.
Mr. Barr, would we be looking a little more closely now at the recommendations from the Planning Commission? Do we remember those? There were 4 recommendations initially that they had, which included no liquor and the time slot.
Yes, they had some conditions. Try to find them here. Well, one had to do about the serving of alcohol, but that
Yeah,
appears to
so
be,
A we wouldn't do.
would not be
okay.
applicable. The other one was hours of operation. They'd stated from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., Sunday through Saturday, unless you want to alter that in some way, shape, or form. And then we had one as far as all federal, state, county, and city requirements shall be met in the development and in the operation of the facility. I don't recall, let's see, wait, no, it was there, trying to see. Oh, the Planning Commission added back in February, no liquor can be sold by anyone. They added that condition as item D.
Okay. So we're looking more of those terms?
Yes, those were the conditions, I believe,
Okay.
when they looked at it a few months ago.
Okay.
Mayor.
Alderman Dupree.
I want
I'm sorry, you had another one?
No, I'm done, thank you.
to, like to ask Alderman Bostic, when you say no alcohol permitted, is that for them and the people who rent from him, or is it just him? Because
that's for the facility, period.
the facility period,
They don't want to do no alcohol in their contract. He stated that they will not be serving any alcohol
at
either.
all, period?
Period, whatsoever.
Okay, I just want
That's-
to clarify that, because if somebody's renting from them, could they bring it, or, them serving it? So we know that they're not going to serve it, but the people who are coming in,
Right.
like the bring your own bottle deal.
Mhm, sure,
So there's not even that, right?
sure. You got it.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Alderman Klein.
All right, so your contract to your leasers will state that no alcohol will be sold or served in your contract with them. They'll hold them accountable, all right?
Yes, sir, as it is right now, yes.
Sold or served,
Mhm.
okay.
Now, again, as stated before, we can't control
Right,
people. We're not
right.
going to be at every event trying to monitor or police what people are doing, what they're bringing or not bringing. That's not up to us. We're just subleasing the facility out, and that'll be in the contract.
Okay.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Okay, y'all won't handle the liquor. Okay, somebody shows up and they come in with a bottle of liquor, who's responsible to say, hey, you got to leave, you can't have that liquor? Is that your security guy? Or are they just gonna go ahead and do their thing and hope nobody gets in trouble?
Again, sir, I can't answer for hypothetical situations. People walk in, businesses with alcohol, and, again, I can't answer to that because I don't know. All I know is what our contract will say, what we have agreed to with the city, and again, we can't monitor and police every single person and what they do and why they do it and how they do it, but we'll try our best, again, to honor what we have here, honor what we have on our contract, and that'll be what it is.
Anyone else? Yes, I want to ask you one quick one, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are y'all going to have security provided at each event, or will this be up to whoever rents the facility?
Majority of our events will not require security. Like we stated before, these are just simply retirement parties, pop-up shops, meeting establishments for companies, and potentially a church. So we are not requiring security by any means. We are not, I would say, present ourselves as an establishment that actually needs security, especially since we are taking out the liquor portion.
I know it seems like everybody's giving you a hard time, but please don't take it that way. You're familiar with the background on an event center not too many months ago and what happened. So that's why the board is being so minute. They want to make sure that everybody understands what's expected of y'all and what you expect from the city also. Did you have some comments, ma'am?
Yes, just to clarify a few things with the event hall that was previously shut down. We are differentiated from those in a number of ways about how we carry ourselves, the audience that we are targeting, the hours of operation that we have, and how we promote ourselves. So we are not associated or plan on being associated with that type of establishment, if that helps.
Okay. Alderman Klein.
I'd like to ask Chief Rowell, what's his feelings on it with these criteria put in place?
Alderman Klein, I would be much more open to it, taking the liquor out of the equation. That's where most of your issues stem from. But at the end of the day, it's y'all's decision to make at this point.
Thank you, sir.
I got one more question.
Alderman Geis.
I know you can't be there 24/7 micromanaging everything, but do you plan on going by, checking if there's an issue, tossing those people out and tell them you violated the contract, you got to go?
Sure. As she stated earlier, we're not, I'm not sure what type of events that you think may happen, but we're looking at, again, as she stated, retirement parties, birthday celebrations, wedding rehearsal, police retirement celebrations, fire department celebrations, these types of events. So again, we're not looking to have that. If there was something and we heard about it, or we were, it was brought to our attention, surely we would address it immediately. But again, we're not looking to have any type of events that may have,
You're hoping not to attract that.
Right, not to attract that type of stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Alderman Dupree.
Would you be willing to put in your contract where it would state no alcohol consumed in this business?
No, sir. We're just going to have in there that we're not selling the alcohol, and we don't want people to provide alcohol. Again, as Mr. Guy says, we're not trying to micromanage the leasees. We're just going to put in there what's required by the ordinances, what's required by the city, and then this extra about taking out the alcohol. I mean, again.
So one line in there, you could put in one line in there, requirement is no alcohol consumed in the establishment.
No, sir, we can't put that in there.
Any more discussion? Alderman Young.
I just want to ask Mr. Billy, this is a real gray area, but I want to ask, is there some way in this code or in this conditional use that we could come through and put a 6-month review on them to go back and review them, and if they have not complied with what they've said, we will revoke their permit?
You can, Alderman Young. One of the factors for conditional use permits is a time limit. And so you could put a time limit for that conditional use permit.
What is the basic premise of the time that you've heard of? Is it 6 months, a year, 18, or is that up to the board?
It depends. You're familiar with our fireworks conditional uses. Those are typically 5 years, but there have been lower time limits for other type
Could we do a 6-month review, every 6 months?
You could.
Of the establishment?
Yes. And I would like to, just tell the applicant, you said you're not going to be micromanaging your tenants or lessees, but I think it would behoove you to do so, because if alcohol becomes a problem and the city finds out about it, they will revoke your conditional use permit. So you can't just take a hands-off approach with your property.
No, it's not going to be a handoff approach, but again, like I said, we're not looking to have any type of events that's going to attract that type of parties or things like that. And it's going to be watched carefully. We're going to look at it, and I would just say that again, that's fine if you want to put a time on it, just as you would put on everybody else, not to just distinguish us, because again, we don't have a track record. We're trying to start a business in Horn Lake, and hopefully Horn Lake would open its arms to allow that to happen. But we're going to put all the measures in place that we can to prevent anything like that from happening, and that's why we're back again to take off the alcohol part, so that won't be an issue.
Mr. Chad?
Yes, if I may. On the 6-month idea on review on the condition, when I worked at a previous jurisdiction, it was a county in another state. It was a one-man shop, so it was just myself doing everything there. And I actually, when we had conditional uses there, I actually tried to get into basically a framework where the governing authority would either just say yes or no and not add conditions. I'm not saying to get rid of all conditions here or whatever. But what would happen over time, let's say you have a jurisdiction, let's say we do 20 conditional uses a year and each one has 5, so that's 100 new conditions. So if that continues over 10 years, that's 1,000 new conditions for staff to monitor. So it becomes, after a while, due to accumulation, it becomes burdensome to staff to keep track of, hundreds or thousands of conditions on all the different uses. So I'm not opposed to putting a time limit on it or reviewing it. I think the 6 months is a bit short. I'd rather see something more like a year. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
I think having a review is a good idea. But I like Mr. Chad's idea of a longer time, because, quite frankly, they're starting, like you said, from scratch. They got to invest money. They have got to more or less build up their business, and it's going to be a lot by word of mouth in that type of business. So I think if the board does wish to have a time limit, that please be reasonable to the applicants and to our staff over here and not make it too short. Alderman Geis.
Review period or not, with a conditional use, at any point, any alderman can bring up a motion to rescind that conditional use, can't they, for cause?
For cause, yes, and with notice to the owner.
So if there's some wild parties there, they don't do what they're going to say, we can always bring it up and do what we have to do. But, I think we have the mechanism in place already to deal with it if there is an issue, like any other conditional use. Just my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Is any more discussion? Alderman Johnson.
Say if I wanted to rent your facility, can you quickly walk us through the process? Would you just give me a key? Say if I'm having my Sweet 16 and I wanted to have your building, would you just give me the key and I go in and I do everything that I want to do? Or is there a process for this?
Sure, there's a process, and it's a scrutiny process. Of course, any applicant or person that would want to come would, of course, contact us at first, and then we would sit down with them and sort of have like an interview, and also they would fill out an application. And on that application, we would explain everything to them within the application, so they would know, which is basically the application will be the contract, which they would know all the conditions that they would have to meet. And then once they have agreed to that, they would, sign. Of course, when they agree, they would have all the things in place that they would need to, that are required within the contract. all the conditions. And then once they've agreed to that, once they have all of those, they would sign it and place a deposit. And then basically we would go from there. As far as on our end, what we would do is, if this is just a simple birthday party or something like that, we would, of course, try to look up and see if we could do any type of background thing, if we need to. And that would be part of our administrative thing, just to make sure that, again, this is not some wild party or anything like that. But as stated before, and as stated by my colleague here, we're not looking to attract anything where we would have to do any type of deep dive into looking at backgrounds or anything like that. Again, we're looking to have business meeting parties, retirement parties, birthday celebrations, things of that nature. And so once they look at the contract and they be able to see exactly the conditions that have to be met on there, I think that, that will be quite a bit for them to, and for us to be able to determine if we would go ahead and approve this sublease for that person wanting to lease.
Are there any more questions or comments? Do we have a motion, please?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I'd like to motion that we accept the conditional use by Ms. Janice Willis for an event center without liquor and a potential part-time church at 1426 Nell Road West.
Did you want to include the hours also, Alderman?
Let me find the hours.
What were they? I don't have
The
them
hours
handy.
of
7 to
operation
11.
from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yes.
We have a motion by Alderman Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second by Alderman Geis. Do we have any discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis.
I think we need to clarify no serving or selling of liquor, and that they would be required, the people renting the facility would be required to have the liability insurance, like he mentioned would already be in the contract.
Would you like to include that in your motion?
Yes, sir. No serving or sale of liquor, and the applicant must include insurance.
Well, I know what the gentleman's talking about. You go to plenty of events, you can go to a football game, somebody's got a half pint stuck in their pocket. You can't watch every one of them, but that's a good thing. Are you comfortable with your second?
Yes, sir.
Is there any more discussion?
One thing, Mayor.
Alderman Dupree.
So I want to go back to, just to clarify, if you guys sell, rent to somebody who is having a party and something kicks off and the police is called, then we can come back and say, hey, this is not in the conditional use of this facility, and we can revise that then, right? Or revisit this. Right, Mr. Billy?
Correct. You could revoke their conditional use permit.
So that goes back to the line in your contract to protect you. No alcohol consumed, because it's going to be coming back on you.
So one call, that's all.
Mr. Billy, do you want to have something to say?
I'll defer. Alderman Young?
Alderman Young.
Your insurance, what is your minimum for your liability insurance that you're going to require?
We'll have to get back with you on that.
You have to get back with me on it. You haven't thought about that?
I didn't say we didn't think about it. I just said we have to get back because we have to see different size of people in different terms have to have different insurance amounts. And so we have to look back and see exactly what we would have to require for that for each applicant.
I would think your minimum would have to be $1 million.
And that may be correct, but again, we have to go back
I
and
would like to
revisit
put that
that.
in the motion if we could, sir.
Did you wish to include that in your motion?
Now, I'm unsure of what the requirements are for that, so I'm a little skeptical on putting that in there. And I'm sure the applicants have probably researched that, but with us going back and forth, they probably hadn't exactly nailed this down at this point, in my opinion. So, no, I don't want to include that in my motion.
Your second still stand, Alderman Geis.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Bledsoe.
When we do events at the park, we have to have $1 million insurance. When they have wrestling or something out of the ordinary, that's the main thing, isn't it, Drew?
Yes, sir, it's $1 million.
I think it's just a written thing for the city, kind of protect everybody.
Is that the norm?
Of course, $1 million ain't much now. So for poor folks.
I think the board just wants to make sure that y'all are adequately covered if something happens, because it'd be your business. Because I think if something happened at that, they couldn't sue the city, could they, Mr. Billy?
Well, Mayor, plaintiff's lawyers can sue anybody they want, so I couldn't say that. The city should not have any exposure.
True lawyer talk. Thank you, sir. All right. Any more comments? Good comment, Mr. Billy.
Mayor, one thing that was discussed that was not included in the motion or the amended motion was a time limit or a review time for the conditional use permit. So that needs to be included if we're going to require it.
Thank you, sir. I think Alderman Young wanted one. Alderman Geis says it's built into the system.
Yeah.
So I don't know, did you want to include one in your motion, Alderman?
Mr. Barber, would 1 year be feasible? And I know we're making the decision, but you have to do the legwork on this. Would 1 year be feasible? I know 6 months was a little out there.
1 year is feasible, yes, because what we can do is we can put what I would call a tickler in our Outlook calendar, that at a certain point in time, the year comes up, we'd notify the landowner, or in this case, the lease people, that, the review of their conditional use permit will be coming up, and we reschedule it for planning commission, and then it would go through the planning commission and then on to the alderman.
I'd like to amend it with 1 year, and we can also, whenever, one call, that's all, as needed, we can always go back.
With the addition, are you still in your second, Alderman Geis?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any more discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Alderman Young,
No.
Sir?
No.
Alderman Dupree,
Nay.
Alderman Johnson,
Aye.
Alderman Bostic,
Aye.
Alderman Geis,
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe,
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on down, letter C, PUD's amendment for Sage Creek. Mr. Barr.
Thank you. We'll switch gears now to case number 2071. Sometimes I show that with 2071 Delta, meaning the Delta, the Greek capital letter for, what is that, letter D, I think. But basically it means change in an abbreviated type form. So in this case, it's the PUD amendment. This was previously approved by the city last year. And since they've come back with some necessary adjustments, mainly because of changes in federal jurisdictional law having to do with wetlands. Before the previous application was approved with 328 lots. This time around, it's come back to you, to the city, with 278 lots. So it's a dropping of 50 lots. The applicant and their development team is present this evening. So I'll go through the PowerPoint presentation. It's 31 slides, but I'm not going to go through all 31. I'll touch maybe on some just very briefly. The wording in the zoning ordinance on PUDs and PUDs amendments is fairly extensive, and I wanted to make sure I covered that in the review with the Planning Commission. So we have a request for a planned unit development amendment, planned unit development, PUD for short, named Sage Creek for 3 properties located approximately at 5070 Goodman Road West. That address is unassigned. It tries to help give a person a location in the west part of town of where it's approximately located at. And the request is by PFMT Holdings LLC, which is the landowner and developer, and WH Porter Consultants, PLLC, which is the planning/site engineer, consisting of 148.27 acres plus or minus for 278 single-family lots of various sizes, and 71.86 plus or minus acres for common open space. Next slide. So what I've tried to do with this particular PowerPoint presentation is divided into 4 parts, A, B, C, and D, which talks about the project description history, B, the planned unit development regulation standards, C, master development plan approval process, and then D, conditions and economics. And so on this particular slide, it starts out with section A, which is the project description. It's been the property has been the subject of past development proposals. As I stated earlier, it was approved last year by the city. That was in September, and that was for 328 lots. And again, this time it's come back for 278 lots. There are 3 parcels involved, actually, which makes up the 148 acres. We'll see a slide of that configuration here in a moment. The parcels are mostly covered by trees in a forest-like manner, and you got different elevations undulating between about 295 feet and as low as about 250 feet. And there's several elevation changes spread out over the 3 subject parcels. Next slide, please. Let's see. The lot size, I'm skipping down to number 9 here on this slide. Lot sizes range from 7,500 square feet to 24,200 square feet. What's proposed is a minimum of 1,800 square feet for the house sizes, and that was one of the conditions that the Planning Commission added to the recommendation of approval. Excuse me. The development timeline is to build out in 5 phases, basically 1 phase per year. Starting in 2022 through, that would be through 27. I got 2024, but I don't know why I put that there. Number 12, I stated earlier, they're coming back because of change in federal jurisdictions on wetlands. Electrical service is Entergy Mississippi. Gas service is Atmos Energy. Next slide, please. Public water service would be Walls Water Association. Sanitary sewer would be the city of Horn Lake. Elementary school, there's the area is kind of divided between the Walls Elementary School and the Shadow Oaks Elementary School area. The high school, the western 2/3 is located within the Lake Cormorant High School area, and the eastern 1/3 is located within the Horn Lake High School area. Next slide, please. So in this slide, you'll see the subject properties highlighted in blue. I'd like to describe it as basically it's kind of Utah-esque in its shape, just to kind of help people find it on the map. That seems to help sometimes. Next slide, please. So here we have a kind of a site analysis as proposed and provided by the applicant. You can see some of the low areas indicated with the blue, some of the ridge lines with the hatched in the kind of the gold color. And so on this particular slide, north is to the right. It's pointing to the right there, or whatever. Next slide, please. This one here is basically showing the conceptual development plan. We're showing the layout of the 278 lots with the wetlands area being undisturbed per the jurisdictional change. They've got the main entrance point coming off Goodman Road, which would be on the south end of the subject properties. And then they're proposing 4 connection points with other subdivisions in the area. Obviously, some of them have not been developed as yet, but maybe in some time in the future. Next slide, please. This one here shows the proposed trails. There's an extensive trail system proposed in the common or open space areas. So I've highlighted those with the red arrows. Again, that the property is on its side there, if you will. To the right is pointing to the north. Next slide. Some interesting things. This is going on to Part B of the Planned Unit Development Regulation Standards as found in the zoning ordinances. I'm going to skip down to the bottom there, where it's in the blue, but the PUD is actually, that the use of the PUD district can be provided in the city with the exception of the following. It can't be applied for public uses, estate, residential, or for low density residential type land uses. What's proposed is an overall density of 1.87 dwelling units per acre. Staff's analysis on that is based from the city ordinance. It lists or defines a low-density residential district as ranging from a density of 1.5 to 2.9 dwelling units per acre. So this falls within that range, actually on the lower side. So from a technical analysis, it shouldn't be allowed, but staff would urge the applicant, developer to request an exception from this range. The reason for this is because so much of the area is being designated as open space. In my previous experiences, other places, if you saw a subdivision and it was a PUD form, you might get 15, 20, 25, maybe 30% designated as open space. In this case, where it's almost at 50%, when you apply that for the development as a whole, it's lowering the density. Therefore, that's why it's driving that number down. Next slide, please. So there's several things here. Probably just not going to touch on this particular slide unless there's a question on it. But there's several things in the PUD development regulation standards that are listed. I'll just go on to the next slide unless you have any questions. You want to revisit that slide. Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So yeah, what's proposed here is 278 single-family lots with no commercial element. And nearly half of the development being proposed is common open space. Amenities are planned for the development, including trails, shelters, benches, and playgrounds, architectural elements, including fencing and certain aspects to the houses themselves. Hopefully you had a chance. The applicant did provide this nice booklet that describes a lot of the things what I'm putting in the PowerPoint here tonight. It's been very helpful to staff, and the Planning Commission really liked what was provided by the applicant there. So staff's opinion is it appears the development would add value to the area and to the city, and it would be it would be served by adequate public water and water services. Next slide. There's actually wording in the city's comprehensive plan on this particular slide where it has to do with connectivity and nature trails. And so they're leaving the nature trails and providing for that large areas of undisturbed nature. That fits very well with the city's comprehensive plan, Part 5, the goals and objectives, page 11, which states that it basically encourages that type of thing to be part of developments and then for developments to be linked together. And so this is a way to accomplish that. So that appears to be consistent with the public interest of the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. So we get into Part C. This is about the master development plan. So I'm going to go down to number 2 here on this particular slide. It says, when considering a PUD application or an amendment thereto, the Planning Commission and governing authority shall consider the potential impacts of the proposed planned unit development upon, and then the following things are listed: adjacent land uses, transportation infrastructure, public utilities, facilities, the comprehensive plan, and other such matters pertaining to the public health, safety, and welfare of the city. And as far as what's proposed, much of the development for this, much of the proposed for this development has been presented earlier in the staff report. So we do a staff analysis on these individual 5 points. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here we've got adjacent land uses to the north. They're larger rural estate type parcels with a few homes upon them. To the east and northeast and east, the subject parcels are forested natural land. To the south, again, a few larger rural estate type parcels with a few homes and a large ranch-like parcel. To the west, a mixture of existing small manufactured home park and then 2 subdivisions with single-family homes being developed. One is the Willow Point Phase 3 subdivision and the other one is Holly Ridge subdivision. Next slide. Going on to the transportation infrastructure, it's proposed to be served by a system of paved roads having 50 feet of road right-of-way width and 31 feet of width between curb backs. As I stated earlier, the main entrance point would be off Goodman Road, which consists of 5 lanes. It's paved road, 2 lanes westbound, 2 lanes eastbound with a center turning lane. And it's also proposed to connect Willow Point Phase 3 and then also and Holly Ridge subdivision. Those are located west of the proposed development site. This is really good for connectivity reasons. And then there would be 3 roads, if you will, call them like stub outs to theoretically connect developments to the north, northeast, and east of this development as time would allow. Next slide, please. This has to do with public utilities and facilities. And I stated earlier it would be served by public utilities for like sanitary sewer and public water. Next slide, please. Okay. This one here has to deal with the comprehensive plan, and there's some wording in the comprehensive plan which supports as far as what's provided, so that's excellent. So the objective number 4, ranging on pages 8 through 11 of the plan, states an objective, to accommodate a range of housing choices, including types and process balanced and in harmony with existing residential neighborhoods. The city approved in December of last year a subdivision plat for Baker's Estates, which that's located northwest of the development area. The smallest lots in that development of 83 lots were about 20,000 square feet, with many towards an acre or more to allow for larger housing units. For example, houses larger than 2,000 square feet. With this development, about 78% or 216 of the lots would be between 7,500 and 11,000 square feet, and this gives the city market flexibility as far as what's being offered for buyers of new homes within the city. Next slide, please. This is continuing on the comprehensive plan. They've got an objective called number 7. It's from page 8. And this is to restrict higher density residential and multifamily development to approved planned unit development. So I touched on this earlier. Basically, what's envisioned by the PUD as through the plan is it would be applicable to more multifamily developments and such. But in this particular case, since the large open space is proposed, this really lowers that density. And I feel that's advantageous actually to the city and this particular development. Next slide, please. Again, there's more objectives here from the plan that talks about connectivity and linking together residential developments. And so what's proposed is doing that. There's also the feature with the provided trail system, or what's proposed is that could link into other parts of the city as it develops into a trail system. So that's advantageous. Next slide, please. Again, just to hit, it's got what's proposed is the full system of urban services. Next slide, please. This one here is also from the comprehensive plan. It says objective number 4 is from page 14, to assist neighborhood associations in their efforts to improve their neighborhoods. This particular item is touched on by staff because we're aware that there's some subdivisions in town that where properties haven't been maintained, where they were designated as either common space or open space, and therefore they went to tax sale, and now they're owned by single individuals that have bought them. And so that's led to some enforcement issues, cutting grass, weeds, that sort of thing. And so one of the conditions placed upon the recommendation from the Planning Commission is to make sure, as far as what's being proposed by the developer, is a good quality system to be able to maintain the open space that they're providing. Next slide, please. This one has to deal with, from the aspect of public health, safety, and welfare. It's proposed, as I said earlier, 31 feet of pavement for all internal public roads. I know in speaking with Chief Linville previously that they would like to see at least 30 feet of minimum pavement width, and that does meet that and exceeds it by a small amount. Chief Rowell, he'd stated earlier, way back in February, before this went to the Planning Commission, the proposal of posting speed limit signs of 20 mile an hour throughout the subdivision to keep the speeds down, basically as an attempt as traffic calming, to make it safer as a place to travel within the subdivision. Next slide, please. This has to do with the last part, which is conditions and economics. This slide is basically, it shows what the city approved with Sage Creek back in September of last year. So there were several things there that were added. I won't go into that now, but there were some things added. Next slide, please. What we've done here is, on this particular slide, is state that the city does have actually design standards for residential zoning districts, which the PUD district would be part of that. And so we've listed the architectural compatibility things. One of the things is the immediate vicinity shall include an area with the same zoning district and a 500 feet radius of the building site. So the only subdivision with the PUD type of zoning within 500 feet is to the west, and that's the, I believe it's the Willow Point subdivision. And when that was approved, there was no extra specifications by the city upon that particular development. Next slide. So here we just have the actual individual items from the single-family residential zoning district as far as architectural compatibility. These are things that are listed in there about roof pitch, roofing materials, landscaping, color schemes, all sorts of things, so that we already have that in our city system. Next slide. So this is just continuing on general design characteristics. Talks about parking, garages, carports, building heights, roof forms, that sort of thing. Next slide. This slide here is to show, ties into one of my earlier comments as far as the Willow Point subdivision phase 3, which is to the west. It has that same PUD type zoning, so therefore it's applicable as far as an area of comparison through the PUD standards. Next slide. As I stated earlier, Willow Point was approved in, actually it was approved with Sage Creek at the same time last year, back in September. But in its approval, the city did not contain any specific design conditions about the housing builds. Next slide. So you see there, in the Planning Commission's approved motion to you, the recommendation was for approval of the request with 4 specific conditions. Number 1, or letter A, excuse me, the applicant owner developer shall proceed in the development process by subdividing the development according to the phasing as prescribed within the master development plan and the city's subdivision regulations per chapter 34 of the Horn Lake City Code. B, applicant developer owner shall post the 20 mile per hour speed limit signs within the development along its public roads. C, applicant developer owner shall properly create and record the covenants and restrictions to govern the development in perpetuity. And D, they added, this one was all builds to be a minimum of 1,800 square feet. And that motion passed 6-0 back on April the 25th. I know that's a lot, sorry, but there's just a lot of stuff with PUDs. I just wanted to be thorough. Thank you. That would conclude the presentation, unless you have any questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very thorough presentation. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Barr? Alderman Young.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. I appreciate that. It's pretty doggone. It's the second time these folks come up here, and I appreciate their presentation and what you did. It looks really nice. Thank you. The only thing that I didn't see, well, there's a couple things, but the biggest, do we have, or have we discussed or looked at the type of streetlights that will be incurred in that subdivision?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I don't think, unless the applicant is just, it's fresh in their mind or whatever, I'm not sure.
Okay. we
There's
can
nothing
discuss
fresh
it.
in my mind.
That's the only thing, that's one of the things that
Okay.
stuck out.
All right.
The second thing I saw is in their preliminary development, two things that I saw. It's, one of the streets are supposed to be 50-foot wide, and I see several places where they're 31-foot wide. We'll get there in a second. And then the next thing I see is on number C of their preliminary development, number 2 in C, it says 1,750 square foot. I thought the minimum we was looking at was 1,800.
Yeah, they had very good questions, very good observations. They had originally proposed to the Planning Commission a minimum build of 1,750 square feet, but during the meeting, they came to an agreement of going with at least 1,800 square feet for each individual build.
Okay, I just want to make sure 1,800 was the number.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And of course, the sidewalks, and here's my average question, sidewalks are ADA accessible, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Mayor.
Alderman Johnson.
Mr. Barr, and what constitutes, or what lets the builders know when to go on to the second phase or the next phase? Is there a time limit? All the houses are made in the first phase. What determines all the phases being complete?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. In the city's subdivision regulations under Chapter 34, the process would be when someone is subdividing a property, of course, they would do their preliminary plan, preliminary plat, and if that's been approved by the city, they would do their construction plans for infrastructure, and that needs to be reviewed and approved by the city. And that gives them the ability, them being the developer, the ability to put in the infrastructure. But before the final plat, any phase on a final plat can be recorded, the city has to inspect those city improvements to make sure that they're up to city code. And if they are, then the city can approve the final plat and those public improvements together. They don't have to necessarily be at the same time, but it's nice that they could be. And then once all that is completed, the city has approved that, then the applicant can actually take the final plat, let's say if it's phase 1 or individual phases, and go record that with the county. And so that would be the proper sequencing that per the city's subdivision regulations of how that should occur. And so as far as the phasing, a little bit is left up to the individual developer. If they feel like they want to get onto phase 2 and phase 1 is, in a certain build out, if they will, that's kind of their call, really, to where they want to allocate to the next phase. So, they've stipulated here that they would like to do one per year, whether they'd be able to keep up with that pace, or they would slow down or accelerate. It's hard to know. But I think the main thing is that with each phase that they plat, that they would go through the city's steps as laid out in Chapter 34 of the subdivision regulations for the city.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Dupree.
Hey, when you was talking about the common area, who's going to keep that up again? For the grass and what have you?
Yeah, my understanding is that that would be they would create like an HOA, a homeowners association, and they would have a funding mechanism to do that. And so if you have like more specific questions, if they had something more specific in mind or how they want to do that, that would be a question for them. But through the ordinary process or development, they would have a homeowners association. People would either pay dues or they would have to be through their taxes, and then it would be pooled together to make sure that the property taxes are always met. And then they would hire people to do the various functions, whether that be mowing or upkeep, different amenities that they would have.
Thank you. I'll address them when they come up.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Barr? Alderman Geis.
If I'm remembering right, we also approved a different type of siding on these in addition to brick. I think they had requested something else, and we approved it.
I think, yeah, let me look back at the right slide here.
I forgot what it was called.
Mr. Hammond.
Oh, yes, it was back in September of last year. It was item C. It says all homes shall be 100% masonry and/or James Hardy fiber cement siding.
Okay.
Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, I suspect the applicant is probably going to address some of these questions, and I think those builders that were here last time I read are not in the project now.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions or comments? I just have one about letter C. Shall properly create and record the covenants and restrictions to govern the development in perpetuity. Like you said, it's implied a homeowners association, but does that need to be spelled out that they shall have a homeowners association, especially with so much common area?
Very good question, Mr. Mayor. I think, if the board felt inclined, they could be specific on that it be done a particular way to help ensure that that's done correctly. Obviously, they need to submit for review by city staff the restrictions and covenants just to make sure that there's a certain quality there and there's not something, sometimes something will be in there that perhaps the city doesn't want to see or whatever. And so we would have to look through that as part of the review submittal on the subdivision plats.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else have any more questions for Mr. Barr? Would the board like to hear from the applicants?
Yes, sir.
Would the applicants come forward, please? Sir, would you give your name and address and all to Miss Julie over there again, please, sir?
How you doing? Henry Porter with WH Porter, 6055 Primacy Parkway, Memphis, Tennessee, 38119. I think Chad did an amazing job kind of going through the whole presentation. I don't know if y'all want to hear more from me on that. I can definitely go through, but it'll probably be just reiterating what he just did. But I was going to hit a couple questions y'all
Excuse me,
asked.
sir, because you're a tall gentleman, but they just know if you would, please. I don't hear that well. Thank you.
Yeah, my bad. No, I was saying that Chad did an amazing job just kind of going through basically what kind of changed. If y'all want me to hear, kind of just restate some of that stuff, I can. Otherwise, I was going to kind of hit on a couple of the questions that were asked. First one was we will have a 50-foot right-of-way. So it's that 31 was really just the face-to-face. And then you'd have 10 feet behind the face of curb to the property line. So I guess the second question was with regards to the streetlights. We have to get with Energy on this, see what they're actually offering. If, they're low-impact LEDs or something like that, I think that's what we would kind of prefer. But it's just a matter of what they had sodium or whatever. Matter of what they're.
I didn't understand the answer. Could you repeat it for me, please?
It's the lights. We'd have to get with Energy to figure out what they actually have to offer with the lighting. And then I guess, I was going to state right now that we don't actually, I think the attorney actually mentioned this, we don't actually have a home builder at this point. Yeah, we came in with a home builder last time, but right now we just kind of went back to the drawing board and actually established some, actual guidelines on how these houses are actually going to, that the architectural standards on, what they actually have to follow by and how it kind of matches with, the surrounding properties, surrounding developments, whatnot. So we've come in without any home builders. So it kind of it's really right now just on the open market. But if y'all have any other questions, I'd be more than willing to answer those.
Anyone, Alderman Dupree?
Yeah, going back to the common area, there is a lot of it.
There is.
How long will you maintain that common area? A lot of developers, they maintain it until like 75, 80% of the homes are up or sold.
Mm-hmm.
What is your proposal?
So that's actually going to be maintained. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount because a lot of this stuff is going to be in streams, wetlands that are going to just be natural woods. But, the grassed area up front or maybe just some of the patches that kind of in the middle, it would be us until 100% of the homes have.
100%? Right. Okay. Also, the nicer neighborhoods like you're going to be building, talking about the street lights, instead of street lights, they have lanterns in the drives. Those are really nice. Have you thought about that?
I'd have to.
Because from what I see, this is a really top-notch development.
Everything we're putting in now is the low impact new LEDs that they've come out with, or quite frankly, they're a little bit less expensive on operating. The light is supposedly a lot more, and that's That's really what all of them are offering right now.
Yeah, see, I'm picturing this
The
really
decorative
nice
poles.
subdivision, and I'm thinking back to all the other subdivisions, really nice that I've seen. Will all the mailboxes be the same, or are they gonna be different?
They're all gonna be the same with kiosk.
Okay, oh, I see what you're saying. All right,
There'll be covered kiosk, be multiple locations. There could be 6 or 8. Quite frankly, we haven't got quite that far. They'll be somewhere tied in,
I got
some easy place to pull off. But like I said, they'll be covered. That's what we're doing in developments, just about everywhere else we're doing.
okay.
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Jim, do y'all have his name, this gentleman's name? Okay, I thought so, but I wanted to be sure.
I'm sorry, it's Paul Fraser,
I just wanted to be
PFMT
sure
Holdings.
for last time. Excuse me, Alderman. Are you through?
No, I'm done, thank you.
Alderman Young?
All right, let's go back. You said that, explain that 50-foot again.
He said for the property line, he meant the right-of-way. So you've got 50 foot of right-of-way, 31 foot.
It's
from-
face.
From face of curb to face of curb.
Chief, Fire
It's a
Chief,
standard street.
how wide is a truck?
About 12 foot.
12 foot? And a car or a pickup truck is probably at least 6 foot, aren't they? 5.5, 6 foot across? What would you say? How wide's a pick, 5.5, 6? We just use 5, 6 foot. So that's 18 foot. So if we put another one on the other side, a fire truck's not gonna be able to get down through there on 31 foot.
Your truck's
We're,
not-
we're going through that now with subdivisions.
They're standard streets. I mean, you're 31 feet face to face. Your truck's how wide?
12 foot wide.
You open the doors on both sides of
Yeah,
that truck. it's-
they can't get out of them sometimes at seams because of the cars parked down both sides of the road. So I looked on here and I saw, I don't know, 10 or 12 spots where it said 31 foot wide. Then there's some spots that says 50 foot wide the streets are. No, it says street. It says street. It doesn't say easement. It doesn't say anything. It says 50-foot street, then it boils down to 31
Yeah, it's probably in the.
on your drawings.
It's probably the entrance where you're coming in. It's a little bit wider. in
Well,
there
there's
with
one that
the,
runs right through the middle of it, says 50 foot all the way through.
Yeah.
And I understand the pinch for the land. I understand y'all got sabotaged in that. I understand that.
No, honestly, I mean, a standard street is a 50 foot right of way. I mean, that's.
Okay. I'm not looking for a standard street. I'm looking to protect the citizens of Horn
Sure,
Lake. You got that?
sure.
Okay. So if the chief says it's 12 and you got a car is 12, 2 cars is 12, so that's 24 foot. So you got 31 foot roads. Explain how that truck's gonna fit through there, please.
Well, car's like 6 or 7 feet wide, is it not?
Sir,
A car's, like your passenger car's like 6 or 7 feet wide, isn't it?
how wide?
6 or 7?
Okay. So you say 6. That's just used, so that's 12 and 12.
And then you have 12, yeah. So you have 12 and 12, so you have
That's
24.
24, and then you open the door, they can't even get out of the dadgum thing.
Yeah.
We really need to visit that and look at it, and I understand the pinch for space, I got that, I get it. But the citizen safety is number one. Please revisit that street, those 31 foot, I really want to see 34s. That would make all the difference in the world. I know those 3 feet or a foot and a half on each side's of money, I understand it.
So I was going to say this
But
real quick. So Shelby County actually just redid theirs, and they actually.
This is Horn Lake, sir.
I know. But I was just going to say they have a 48 foot wide. And I guess they felt like that was good enough to actually get a fire truck through, and
That's how far curb to curb, gutter to gutter though?
it was actually a little bit narrower, but.
Well, they're not gonna get a truck down there if 2 cars
Yeah.
are parked on the side. I don't care how mathematical or common core you go there, it's not gonna happen.
That's 31 feet.
I know that.
I'm not understanding.
You got 24 and 24. You got 12 and 12 is
You have
24 foot.
you have additional 7 feet, I guess basically what ends up being.
Right, but you gotta have you ever been on a fire truck, try to put out a fire or an ambulance? I mean, you gotta have room, guys. We got 30-foot streets now, these trucks can't get down. We're having that problem, are we not? We're having that problem in 2 locations now. So, it's not common core, it's gotta be visited and looked at. So please do that.
We'll take a look at it.
Please review that. I mean, even an extra foot on each side would be nice to make sure. And if you can't do that, I'll give you an out. I want no parking on the streets in your subdivision.
This is not supposed to be,
I understand that's how it's
that's in
supposed
the
to.
HOA anyway. and
Well, I
that's gotta
understand.
be the
So
town's responsibility.
if that's the case, you can, no parking, and they understand that, then We need to make sure signs are placed, no parking on streets or whatever. I'm just looking at the public safety.
Sure.
I mean, that's number one to all this, okay?
Totally agree.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Alderman Dupree.
Yeah, we're going through that issue right now with the emergency vehicles. Can't go through or get to a call because of cars on the street, so we're taking care of that now, thanks to the police department. It's in the HOA. How do you make the people that live there follow the HOA rules when it comes to this? They're not doing it now in other subdivisions, that's why we had to take action.
We can only do so much with, only thing we can do is implement what we can implement. We don't have the authority to cut their water off if they won't follow the rules or pay their fee.
Well, I'm just asking a question.
No, I'm trying to answer it back. We do everything we can. To answer your first question was about it, we're gonna fund it 100% until the end. Then we're gonna turn it over. The maintenance of it, I do want everybody to understand that with the project, there's gonna be a lot of green space that's undisturbed, period. So we're gonna have our trails, we're gonna have amenities with the project, they're depicted in there. So that's what we're trying for, and that's what we're gonna have. So I know that answer your question.
So will you guys be providing the no parking signs on the streets?
We'll put as many street signs up as an inch.
No, that'll save us a little money, thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Just,
Alderman Geis.
just for clarification, there isn't going to be according to the HOA, there's no on-street parking.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
The only thing that we might have is if we do pull-offs or some kind of turn-ins for where the kiosk might be,
Yes, sir.
that will, there might be some different kind of parking set up, but quite honestly, we haven't got that far with the plans.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? I really like all this open space.
Yeah.
I especially like it right along Goodman Road. Somebody coming down, your development's back in there. I appreciate all the time and effort and work that y'all have done on this, and I'm sure you know that everybody on this board is just trying to look after public safety and have quality development, which this looks remarkable. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Alderman Bledsoe.
One thing about wetlands, it's bit more than one person before about land and stuff. People get ready to build. Some people built in wetland, then they had to come down and pay a big fine and stuff. But y'all caught it in time, so that could be part of your green space, I guess.
Yeah,
Because you got a lot of it, I think.
yeah, that's what it is, and those trails.
Any more questions or comments? Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, this being an amendment to the PUD, even though we're not changing the land use within the PUD itself, it is still a public hearing, so we should ask for any comments from anybody else in the audience before we close it.
All right, so this is a public hearing. Are there any comments? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Mr. Francis J. Miller, citizen.
Are you sure?
Evening, Mr. Francis.
Good evening. My name is Francis J. Miller, and I am a voting citizen in the city of Horn Lake 14 years now, and I vote every time. I am so happy we finally got 1,800 square foot houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Francis?
Is he gonna buy one of them?
I don't know. I don't know. Anyone else have any comments? Anyone else? That being the case?
We got one in the back.
Oh, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, when you get here, if you'll give your name and address to Miss Julie for the minutes, we'd appreciate it.
Sorry, I have an addition. My name's Kirby Carter, 6465 Cornwall Road, Horn Lake.
What road, ma'am?
Cornwall.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question with the housing. So this is my little boy. He's special needs. He is also autistic, but we have a medical disorder. I'm just curious, with so much open space with kids and whatnot, will there be any like speed bumps, like going in to the subdivision? I know there's a bunch of stuff that's connected. I was just curious. I thought that would be a way to slow down speeding, because there's a lot going on in our subdivision right now.
I know and I understand your concern especially, but most emergency vehicles do not like speed bumps because it slows down the response time too long. It's like when cars are parked along the side of the road and the emergency vehicles can't get through, it just slows it down, and someone's badly injured or sick, they need to get help or fire or police call as quickly as possible, and the speed bumps really slow down response time to emergency vehicles, ma'am.
Sure, I understand. I'm a nurse, so I totally get it. I just was curious to the actual entrance, though. I didn't know if that would save, just like when they speed out, just an initial one off of the main Goodman Road right there, not throughout the subdivision, but just coming off of the main highway there.
Well, they've got it here 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Of course, we've got 45 out here, and some people do 70.
Sure.
But they are attempting to slow down the traffic going through there.
Okay.
And I understand your predicament.
No, I just was curious. I just thought that
If
with
someone
so much
has
open
someone
space.
with a condition, we have signs we can place up. You've seen them throughout the
Sure,
city.
yes, sir. Yes, our
And
alderman
most people
helped
are
us.
pretty good about watching those. I can't swear everybody is, but
Sure, no, that was
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
suggestion.
Good
I was
question
just
you
curious.
had.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
ma'am.
it.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? If not, this public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
make a motion to approve case number 2071, HUD's amendment for Sage Creek, including the 4 conditions added by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Does that motion also include the establishment of an HOA? That's what.
Okay, yes.
All right, sir. We have a motion by Alderman Geis. We have a second by Alderman Bledsoe. Do we have any discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
can we also be sure that we have in there that they will take care of the common areas 100% until the entire subdivision is completed?
I think the developer is nodding yes out there. Did you want to include that in your motion?
Yes, sir, I'll add that as
All
well.
right, and that included in the motion, the second still good? Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostick.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank y'all, gentlemen. Did y'all want to take about a 10-minute break to stand up, get some circulation?
Good idea.
Y'all will excuse us just a moment, please.
Hey, Jim, I just now seen that. I'll be thinking about asking that.
Pop them ears. You gotta get hearing aids.
Johnson subdivision lot 2.
No, I am on the Christmas. Primaries are, just a year back. And that's what I told them.
I think his wife is the one who bought it.
That's been a legitimate discussion for years.
More than that. But I gotta go back up and
Brought me and
go deal with
You know what I was thinking? Kurt.
Yes, sir, I understand. The problem is when you open these doors. You can't get out. You also got to open
This would be a good event.
I think so.
Yeah, nobody lined up there.
Hey, Miss Jessie.
No number in there.
That's right.
Ain't that right, Chief? You gonna start riding? Supposed to be
Make it a couple hours.
Get a marshal.
All right, is everybody ready? Okay, we're on Roman numeral 6 under new business. It's a resolution for cleaning private property. That's a public hearing. I now declare it open. They have a list of properties that the city needs to clean up that haven't been taken care of. Is there anyone out here to speak yea or nay on these properties? Chief Rowell, has Mr. Henson's place, the grass got cut. Is that one of these places? I don't know.
I don't want to misquote, so I don't want to say it's not, but I don't believe so.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone? Anyone any comments? Anybody from the board? All right, that being so, this public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Bostic.
I want to make a motion to approve the resolution of cleaning private property as posted.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Bostic. We have a second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Letter B. I know Alderman Bostic asked me, does that need to go into executive session? My intention on that was just to ask y'all if y'all wanted me to pursue that. The old football field down by the old Horn Lake High School, it's already fenced. I don't know how good a shape the fence is in. I don't know if the Board of Education would be willing to do it. I don't know whether y'all even like the idea of a dog park, but y'all want me to check and see what shape the fence is in, if there's water line down there, check with the Board of Education if they're interested in listening to us. I just need y'all's guidance on what y'all want me to do. Alderman Bledsoe.
You know, there it says park, and Billy knows if we inherit a park, we can't get rid of that rough. We tried. So if you say park.
No, I don't, no, we don't want a park. No.
Hey, but it says park here, so.
I know it. I guess you would call it that.
Something else.
Yeah, 'cause
we got about 16 of them.
I know we have a dog park. It'd be ours just to take, if the board did wish to pursue it, and we did do it, we would have to maintain it while we had it, but it would not be our city property. We would have to keep it cut and maintained if we did use it as a dog park.
Maybe a dog run.
Maybe. Okay. Do y'all, I don't think we need a vote on this, do we, Mr. Billy?
Mr. Mayor, I think opinions may differ on it, so I don't know.
Alderman Geis.
As you know, I'm not opposed to a dog park. Before I was elected, I came before the board trying to get one. The issue I see with this is to have a proper dog park, you will have to upgrade the facility, you'll have to buy the equipment that goes on it. and all that. So if we invest all that money, get donations, do whatever to develop it, and the property's not ours, if the school decides they want to go a different route with that property and we have to move, then we have a lot of equipment and nowhere to put it.
That's a great comment. If the Board of Education were willing to give it to us, would the board like me to ask the Board of Education if they would be willing to donate that property to us? Or would y'all just rather just let it go for right now?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Alderman Boston.
I would prefer to let it go right now. We've got a lot of more things that we need to take care of in the city, and we've already got plenty of parts that Drew has to manage now. I can't see another, 100 yards of grass we're going to have to maintain and cut, and I just think that it would, later down the road, that could be a possibility, but right now, I just don't think it's feasible.
All right, so Alderman Klein had his hand up first. Alderman Klein.
Yeah, and with this company that we have doing all this legwork, I would think we'd want some input from them too before we jumped out there.
All right, sir. Alderman Geist.
And another thing that might be considered here is with the previous park director, I'd already spoke with him about a piece of park land we already have that has a walking trail on it and one piece of equipment. So we already have some land that we could use that we're already maintaining.
Which park is that, sir? I know we got so many like Alderman Bledsoe.
It's across from I guess what is the intermediate school now, up in that subdivision, kind of to the west of Flavorite, up in there, there's...
Kentwood.
Yeah, Kentwood, you turn left and there's a bridge, there's a big park there.
Right.
And
Oh, it's about 4 acres.
it's about 4 or 5 acres already with an existing walking trail that nobody uses. So it would be we already own it, we're already maintaining it. So that would be, to me, a better location to develop
Are
it.
you talking about eventually fencing it in?
Yes, sir. And it's fenced by private property on 2 sides already, and then there's a large ditch or ravine to the east of it. So you're only talking about having to fence part of it. And you've already got the walking trail there and the grass and everything that the city's already maintaining.
And we do own part of that land on the other side of the ditch, because we used to have to clear it.
Is that all right with everybody? Alderman Young.
Well, we also got Wooten Park, the ball fields at Wooten Park that we don't use. We got restrooms out there, but that's sort of dilapidated a little bit, tore up, whatever, might need to look at getting rid of that or whatever. But also the consideration would be Wooten Park. It's already fenced in and whatever, so.
Yes, sir. That preliminary map that the Corps of Engineers put out for flood control, and of course, that's just a preliminary. What they envision is putting what do I call it, Mr. Vince, a retention or a detention area? Retention area there. That's their study, and the library is full of studies. But y'all want to wait and see what develops before?
I think we need to.
Don't they use Wooten for softball? Drew, y'all still use Wooten for softball?
No, sir, we don't use that for softball anymore.
Okay, that'd be a good way to, never mind.
Okay. All right, if the feeling I'm getting is just let it go right now. Is that right? Okay. All right. Letter C, resolution appointing Mississippi municipal voting delegates. I'm not going to be able to go. Alderman Bledsoe is going to be going. Alderman Klein, even though Alderman at large, he's not going to be going either. So I'd ask the board to please select Alderman Bledsoe as a voting delegate and Alderman Dave Young for the alternate. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Dupree. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Geis. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. We're all set for the MML. All right. Letter D, a discussion regarding the City of Horn Lake Property Maintenance Code revision. Alderman Young, I'm going to turn this over to you as you've been doing a lot of work on this.
We have, the committee, which consisted of Mr. Bostic and Mr. Dupree, we've met on several different occasions, and we feel that something needs to be done. The city is sliding back. If the one thing that only comes out of our property maintenance code is to fix the fences that are in our neighborhoods, that would improve the city dramatically, just the fences. Of course, it's a lot more detailed than that. I think everybody got a copy of that. It's a lot in there. It will establish a code enforcement office in that new maintenance code rental and ordinance. So it will take it out of the police department, which will make Chief Ryle extremely happy, as much as Chief Brown. It's going to, if you read it, it should be self-sufficient, self-sustaining after the first year with the way it's structured. We've got to do something. If you read the letter from a lady that was sent about what is happening with these companies coming in and buying up our cities, they're coming in and they could care less about our residents or what their homes look like, or whether the fences or trees are falling on them or roofs are good or the driveways are collapsing or anything else. I think we have an obligation to our citizens to establish some sort of ordinance, property maintenance ordinance, to make sure that these companies maintain a positive look in our city. There are people out there that work hard every day for their dollar, and they call these property maintenance companies, and you get online, you can search these properties, look for complaints. The amazing thing about that is you say, well, everybody complains, whether you can't find one positive about a lot of these companies that are coming into Horn Lake right now. Not one positive. And that includes some that are open in this city right now. It does require a lot of items from the property maintenance companies that are doing business in our city. Instead of them taking the money out of our city and putting it into Boston or Sacramento or Orlando, Florida, or wherever they're putting it, that money remains in Horn Lake with the brick and mortar for that company. Now, whether that company wants to hire a person that works out of a office or however, that's up to them. But to supply the code, to be within the code, they're going to have to be in DeSoto County, which gives us...
Can I interrupt just a moment?
Yes, sir.
I think we're getting over to the rental ordinance, and I think what we're considering right now is property maintenance.
Well, it's
property maintenance, I think, concerns not only the rental houses, but also people who own their homes.
That's exactly where I was going.
All right, yes.
Yeah. Like I said, the people require us to do something. The property maintenance code, as pointed out by the mayor, is for every piece of property in the city of Horn Lake. They need to be maintained to a standard that is acceptable. We're trying to bring this city up, and if you ride around and you look, the last 12, 14 years has not been a very, very substantial progressive movement in the city of Horn Lake to keep us up to the standards. So property maintenance is absolutely required. So I think the revision of the code is as the mayor has. I didn't get a copy of that, but I think everybody else got a copy of it, I believe. Did everybody else get a copy of the maintenance ordinance? No?
Did a while back.
A while back?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then what I would do with that, Mayor, is if we have not received the updated copy, I would ask that we table this motion till the next meeting, till everybody can get an updated copy of that property maintenance request.
Yes, sir. And I think, like you, it's much, much needed. And the letter, for the benefit of the people in the attendance, was actually addressed from a citizen in South Haven to Mayor Musselwhite, and talking about the problems with the companies buying up the houses and renting them all out. And so I sent a copy of that letter to each one of the aldermen, because she was very clear in talking about the problems that some renters cause by not taking care of their property, and some rental companies cause by not maintaining their property. So at the suggestion of Alderman Young, would y'all like to table this till the first meeting in June?
Mayor,
Alderman Bledsoe.
I have one question, I don't know if this pertains. These guys buying these houses and stuff, and now they're putting parties on, or they're not, they're renting it out for parties. And I'm having a problem over yonder where I live. They got a nice big house, but he rents it out for parties on weekends. And the neighbors don't like loud music and stuff. They call the police, and then the people go hide. I mean, it's just, maybe we can do something, Billy, is there anything that you can put in an ordinance with this to keep from these guys buying these houses and renting them out on the weekend?
Yes, not in this ordinance necessarily, Alderman Bledsoe. This is dealing with, like Alderman Young said, fences and roofs and stuff like that, but you can address that in the zoning code, and because that has been an issue where you have party houses rented out, and there's been some case law on that saying you can regulate that to stop it.
So we got it, or we need to do one?
Let me I did not prepare for that tonight, so let me I'll try to do that in advance of the next meeting as well and have you a better answer.
Okay, well, it hit me in the face. They had a party, and they didn't call the police because they didn't want to bother the police. I said, well, that's the only way to solve that problem.
Is everyone in agreement to? I want to commend the members of the committee. Y'all worked long and hard on this, and I certainly appreciate it. I know South Haven has one now, Olive Branch has one now, and I want to commend the code enforcement, since we're now up to the 4 that this board so wisely agreed to hire. Week 4 last, I see Chief Brown has left, but they answered what, 300 calls, Chief?
Yes, sir. In your packet, this meeting, you should have seen their April's field contacts, and it's more than double what it typically has been.
Yes, sir. And most of them have been cleared. Most of them were cleared. I noticed, though, like Alderman Young has said one time, there's more semis parked, but we have one business that's wanting to start, hopefully, for all of us, a business with our truck drivers, because our economy depends on these hard-working people.
Yes, it does.
Will they be able to park their vehicles? All right. With that said, we'll go on down to the next one, if I can find the proper piece of paper here. All right. The next one is discussions regarding, Mr. Billy, before we go any further, on this proposed property maintenance, we'll have to check with you to see if there's any conflict with things we already have.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll leave this as food for thought without getting into a large discussion about it, since we're going to carry it over to the next meeting. But you mentioned South Haven and Olive Branch, and they do have a property maintenance ordinance adopted. What they both did was took bits and pieces from the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and adopted it in ordinance form. And I certainly have no problem with the board doing that if that is what the desire of the board to do. But what Horn Lake already has on the books is in 2021, when we adopted all of the international codes, we adopted the entire 2018 International Property Maintenance Code that is about 65 pages long, that probably addresses every code issue that you can imagine. So that is already out there, can be enforced by the city if it chooses to do it that way.
65 pages?
Yes, sir. All right. Yes, sir.
They might want to consider kind of shortening it down a little bit. Pictures, okay. Thank you, Mr. Campbell, thank you so much. All right.
So
you kind of threw me off, okay? All right. The next item, letter E, is discussion regarding the Horn Lake rental ordinance. And again, the committee has done a wonderful, wonderful, worked hours and hours on this. And Alderman Young, if you don't mind, I'm going to give it to you again because you kind of touched on it before I interrupted you. I got ahead, so I apologize.
No, I was getting ahead of myself. Everybody, I do believe, got a copy of the proposed ordinance that we're looking at for regarding rental homes in our area. Right now, Horn Lake is sitting somewhere around the 38.8% home in our city as rentals. That's above the national average, way above. Talked to some people and they say, well, I thought it would be more like 50 or 60%. It's 38.8 is the last thing I know. And in some wards, the number of that will be higher than in other wards. The ordinance, like I said, would develop a code enforcement office with a supervisor in the code, and y'all all have read it. It needs to be implemented. We need to bring it to fruition. If there's adjustments that we need to make on it, we can certainly do that. I have no problem with that. It does not affect anyone that owns 3 homes or less. There is no grandfather clause. I would look at what I would suggest, and this is just me suggesting this, that if we do adopt this tonight, that we do not phase it in until the 1st of October, something like that, to give us plenty of time to contact all the rental agencies and explain to them the new ordinances and get them a copy of it so they would know how they're going to have to comply. We don't just need to jump on their back and ride them like, a wet mule or whatever. We just need to let them know what's expected of them and what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And, we need to be honest with them and honest with us because they will have to comply with this new ordinance. And there's a lot in there. The committee packed a lot in there. But if you ride around town, I think you'll understand. You can go line by line in that ordinance and see exactly where that ordinance came from. So that's pretty much what I've got. Has anybody got any questions concerning this ordinance or anything you need me to explain further?
I was just
It doesn't
going
have to be a public hearing. Alderman Bostic.
Did you had a chance to review everything on there, Billy?
I have.
You have everything. Do you have any questions for the committee or for us or something that needs to be changed or is that something you're going to email us and let us know, or can we want to do that now or what?
Alderman Bostic, you can see my blue markups here, so I did have some questions and markups on it, but I don't intend to go line by line tonight through it. But I have like 2 main questions to try to maybe clear up tonight. One of the things that the ordinance says it is to address, and it lists some things. It says repairs to exterior of homes, when lawns must be cut, vehicle requires removal, trees or bushes require trimming, replacement of fencing, excessive trash removal, roofing issues, including cosmetic and replacement. So my general question is, if those are the things that you're trying to target, why can't you do that in a property maintenance ordinance that we're going to discuss at the next meeting or that we briefly discussed previously?
You can certainly put that in a property maintenance agreement, which would include also the property owners, not just the rental court. If you'll notice the line above that starts that premise, it says the alderman and the code enforcement have the ability to, but not limited to. So we're not limited to those items. Those are just examples of the items that the code enforcement will be enforcing.
So are there other things that you're going to target or you're attempting to target with rental properties that don't pertain to the exterior of the house?
We will not be targeting anything interior. We will not be inspections interior. The fire department, if they want to put a smoke detector in there, that's up to the fire department. Ours will be extremely condensed strictly on the exterior of the home. In my personal opinion and the evidence that I've looked at and people I've talked to, a lot of property owners do not want to uphold the exterior of their home or keep it clean, because they don't want us to get reassessed, so they don't have to pay more property taxes. Well, those days I hope are gone. So I would think that the list that you just read there would only be a small, I mean, there's a lot of things that would be looked at, and it would be up to the code enforcement office, the code enforcement officer, or anybody on this board, or the police department or whatever, if they see an issue, or the fire department see, I mean, you know, somebody's burning outside in their backyard, burning a tree or burning limbs, you know, that's code enforcement sees that, that's certainly a fire department issue. So, you know, it's a pretty broad spectrum, of course, of what we have in that 65 pages I haven't read, but I would think it would be included in that.
That's my point, isn't it going to be addressed in a property maintenance ordinance somewhere?
I would think we need the name rental property in there, not just property maintenance. I feel that we strictly need to target rental properties and the lack of maintenance from their ownership.
My other question was, I've read everything in this, and I think you made the comment earlier that y'all sort of modeled this off of Madison's ordinance. So I pulled it up and kind of compared it as I went along. What I see in our proposed ordinance is different than Madison's, is ours is basically a license or registration ordinance, which Madison's is as well, but Madison also includes an inspection component and a repair or restoration component. So am I reading it right that we don't have those two components in our?
Correct. We do not have those two components, and we have moved into away from a penalty organization. In other words, we're now looking at charging them. In other words, if we see their fence is destroyed, they have 15 days to comply to the code enforcement of how they're going to fix it, and then 30 days to start. And if after that 30 days they do not, they'll be charged $50 a day penalty. So therefore, on any violation, yards cut, trees, whatever that happens to be the violation, that code enforcement happens to see, or a police officer out there on the street sees, we're charging them that $200 per house unit. It would not include apartment buildings, it'd be $200 for the whole building, but $200 per house would help support the code enforcement that it's going to be required to make this rental property agreement happen. That's what that's for. I don't think, and the board sees different, and that's fine, but I don't think that the committee didn't think we needed to get into a inspection process. We don't need to do that. That we didn't need to do that. We didn't feel, unless another board may feel different.
Mr. Campbell, under Mississippi statute, tenants have the rights to take their landlords to court for the conditions, say, on the inside of the house, don't they?
Sure, yes, sir.
So if we didn't have inspections, we're not limiting the tenants just to live in bad conditions. They can stand up for themselves on that.
That's right. There's still a Landlord-Tenant Act in Mississippi.
Thank you, sir. Did you have anything else?
Those are my main questions, Mayor. What I think I would like to do is maybe meet with the committee and go through my question marks, and these are my other minor questions, and maybe put it in ordinance form and then get it back on the agenda for consideration.
That's fine. You okay with that? Mr. Bostic, you okay with that?
I don't know yet. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you're on the committee, so you need to.
The committee was Alderman Young, Alderman Dupree, and Alderman Bostic.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
That's what I'm at. Are you okay with tabling it until we can meet with Mr. Billy to answer the question?
That's why I asked him the question. I'm sure he had some questions for us.
Well, I don't want to rush you into anything.
Don't rush me. I'm on vacation, man.
You can't see his notes like Alderman Bostic can. Have you ever been to a restaurant and they give you one of those kitty things where you find your...
Yeah.
He's got notes. I have just a few questions if the board is through, just to throw out generally, and I've already discussed these with Alderman Young, because it says, all right, on page 2, each rental leasing company with a rental base larger than 3, right?
Correct.
All right. And then it says, down there, the third bullet point, must have a business office in the city of Horn Lake and have a full-time employee. Someone that's got 5, 6, 7 houses, they can't afford to rent a space and have a full-time employee.
They can use the property maintenance company.
Sir?
They can hire a property maintenance company.
Okay, that takes
But
probably,
it's Horn Lake or DeSoto County. They don't have to specifically have, and the reason for that is that a code enforcement officer cannot issue the summons. A law enforcement officer has to issue that summons. So the code enforcement officer will come back, check that into the police department, and then either we'll have a police officer or a constable serve that summons to that location. So we need to know how to get a hold of those people to
Yes.
start the 15-day clock.
all right, so if they've got 4 houses, they're gonna be required to have a business office, which maybe they just may hire out to a company. Is that
Or-
right?
That's correct. Or they can apply for a permit in their house and have I mean, people in Horn Lake can have a business in their home.
It's a good thing. And then the bullet point right under it, each rental leasing company must submit a complete list by address each quarter with every property address. That's great. And the name of the current renter. You know, when you and I were discussing it, my position was, and I asked you, why do we need to know who's renting it? All we're caring about is how it looks on the outside. You know, I'm just trying to see how much paperwork are we gonna be generating? Because
Well-
people, renters come and go. They might be there 2 months and somebody else, and how you gonna keep up?
Well, that would be the property maintenance code or whoever managing the property, that's their deal. They have to submit it to us. And the reason we do that, when law enforcement goes out to these houses, they need to know who they're talking to.
They
Just
need
like,
to know the owner of the property, don't they?
no, I'm talking about the person who's renting the property. We need to know who that is. Just like Mr. Bledsoe said, he's got people having parties over at that house. So if they call the police out there and they go out there and Sam whatchamacallit comes to the door, well, the police officer already knows Sam whatchamacallit ain't renting that house. There's an issue there. Is he a burglar? Is he a robber? What's going on? I just think it's a security thing, and we also need to know what properties are vacant, so that we maybe, if they get a call to 123 Widget Street, and the dispatch or whoever or whatever already knows 123 Widget Street is a vacant house, then they know that they might be engaging in something that may require more than 1 or 2 officers.
I see your point now, because I inquired about a house where the gentleman passed away, and I was seeing cars out there. I was wondering, are there squatters in there? Because I've been seeing those news, are they
It's just a
squatting?
safety
Are these
thing.
people
It's a safety
supposed to
thing for
be
the city.
here?
Yeah.
And then, I'm just gonna hit a few. On page 4, I just need some clarification on, a boarding house, and where it says, lodgings are provided for 2 or more persons other than legally related. I don't know, is legally related like the 5th cousin, or the sister-in-law, or how close a kin do they have to be?
I'd refer that to Mr. Campbell.
Okay, if you just check on that for me, please.
That's a pretty.
I put a question mark beside that one too, Mayor.
Oh, did you? Okay, thank you.
No, I will.
Oh, thank you, sir. And then on page 5, and I've asked Alderman Young about these. He's clarified a lot of them for me, but just for the benefit of the people out here, and to ask Mr. Campbell too, on letter K, it was just like what people rent a room. We all know that some people rent out a room in their house. No, a dwelling unit, a room or group of rooms occupied or intended to be occupied as a separate living quarters for one household. In other words, like if I went and rented a room from Oliver and Boston.
No, sir, I don't think that's referring to room rentals. That's referring to the entire structure, whether it's sort of like a duplex or a townhome or an apartment or even a rental house would be considered a dwelling unit under that definition.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
That goes back to Mr. Bledsoe's issue with the rental house and
Alrighty.
parties and all that.
All right. Page 6, rooming house, letter U. A building where lodging only is provided for compensation to 2 or more persons. That's pretty self-explanatory. Page 7. I think at that time, the way this discussion started off was that we were going to get money from the owners of the property, and if they didn't do it, the repairs, then we were going to come in there and do it. But now we're out of the construction business.
Right, the
So
committee
we can
felt we need to
scratch-
get out of the construction business. We don't need to be in the construction business.
Right, so we can scratch letter C on page 7, is that under 5?
That's correct.
I think that's right, Mayor.
All right, sir. Page 8. Rental license be displayed. I used to have to display them in a liquor store, so I have no problem there. What I had a question about, and we've been down this before, and I can't remember, these halfway houses. Because we get complaints periodically about, I guess you would call them offenders, or I don't know what you call them, felons, I don't know the crime. And then they get a halfway house. Because we've had people call and say, well, there's 6 or 7 people over here, and the van comes and gets them and puts them out. And I got kids, and I don't know what crimes they've committed. How do we regulate that? That's just, yeah, because, Alderman Young.
The gentleman that owns those lives in my ward. And those are not any type of felons or any pedophiles or anything like that. They are low-risk drug dealers, people like that have been given the opportunity to better themselves a second time. They've taken the eraser and said, you know, you made a mistake, now let's try this. Many of them in there are on parole. Actually, over on one of the streets where there is a house last week, I believe Chief Riles' department had to go to a location and had to rectify a situation and remove an individual. And the next day, the owner of that property, I do believe, if I'm not speaking out of turn, removed 2 other individuals that were involved in it because he won't put up with that. But I do think that there is an opportunity for those homes as long as they abide. Because if you look at those, I have 5. If you look at those homes, they're some of the nicer ones. He really keeps his property up, and there again, we're looking at the exterior of the property, not the interior. And I understand, but he's not putting pedophiles or anything, and I understand that the public's concerned about that. But he who's thrown the first stone that's never walked in a glass house, okay?
I know. It's just that I understand, and I think you do, and everybody on the board does, if one of these houses was next to you and you had children, or if you were just living by yourself, or you and your spouse.
Sure.
What kind of neighbors do I have over there? Is there any way that we should be, because they don't notify us. This might be a big surprise, but we find out about it when people call us. They make no attempt to let us know what's going on or where they are. Alderman Bledsoe.
We had one down on Church Road where my brother used to live. What they were gonna do, they were making money as a business, and they were housing these people, making money from the people that they were housing that were offenders. And they didn't have a business license or anything, so I don't know, I imagine they have to have a business license and then they go through the proper forms.
He does.
To make sure you know, but they would just go set it up and go, and the neighbor called me and said, oh no. I said, I've been living here thing, and I got a $300,000 house, and I don't want this next door.
I understand.
Can we get Mr. Miller to kind of mull that over and see if there's any possible way so we can know where they are or restrict them to certain areas or what?
I will, Mayor, but that also is sort of outside the rental property ordinance. That kind of goes back to what Alderman Bledsoe was talking about, party houses. That should be addressed in your zoning ordinance as opposed to, these may not even be rental houses. These could be, people that own the house and, allow others to stay in. They may not be renting it out. They may be free of charge or.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. On page 9, committee members, I guess we can scratch letter A, since we're not in the construction business.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. And B.
And B. Thank you, sir. All right. I've got a note here on page 10 under number 10, letter B. I didn't quite understand. Notwithstanding any other provisions of RLPA, it shall not be unlawful for any person to continue owning, operating, managing, or maintaining a dwelling or rental unit whose rental license or certificate or compliance respectively have been suspended except as noted below. Okay, if everybody just kind of look at that one. Okay. On page 11, number 11, letter A, the fee for a rental license should be $500 and a supportive fee of $200. Are we changing that around to just $200 per unit? So,
Well, their business license would be $200 and then $200 per home.
okay, thank you, sir. License, $200 per home. $200. Is that all right with you, Alderman Bostic and Alderman Dupree? Okay.
Mayor, I have a question on that.
Alderman Guys,
This doesn't apply to these fees don't apply to somebody with one rental house?
No, it has to be 3 or more.
has to be more than 3?
More than 3.
More than 3, okay. All right, letter B under that, must submit a complete list of properties by address semi-annually or upon new occupants. Would annually be enough instead of semi-annually?
Not, you ride through Ward 4 at the first of the month, I don't think so.
Okay, and then on appeals, the very last line there, Mr. Billy, I need to ask you that. This appeal may be denied for any reason by the Board of Aldermen.
I'll scratch through that, Mayor, so.
Scratch that off?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know whether that would be legal or not. And believe it or not, I know y'all will be glad to hear, that's the end of my question.
I have one question on
Thank
that.
you for your patience on it. Sir?
Mr. Billy, is there going to be, should we not put an appeal line in there where they have the right to appeal?
No, that paragraph is still in there, the mayor, and I didn't like that last sentence in there that said.
That the board has the right to deny the appeal? Okay, that's fine.
For any reason, I think was, yeah,
Okay,
problematic.
that's fine. Yeah, as long as they have the right to appeal, I mean, they should have that right.
That's right.
That's all I had. Alderman, do y'all have any remarks or questions? What are we gonna do? Y'all was asking Mr. Billy Lee, give him time to look at them and then come back with his guidance on this? Is that correct, Mr. Campbell?
Well, sort of, Mayor, I would just like to meet with the committee and kind of go through my minor stuff, sort of like you talked about, and maybe iron out those deals and put it in ordinance form and then bring it back to the full board then.
Is that amendable to everybody, especially the committee members? We don't need a vote on that.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right. We're down to citizens' remarks. Do we have any?
We have item F.
Pardon?
Item F.
Oh, item F, request adoption of resolution adopting District 1 Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. If you have any questions, Deputy Chief White is down here. You know, Chief Limble is out. And then Captain Chief Rowell is down here. Does anybody have any questions about that?
How would you know? Mayor.
Sir?
That's the same thing we've been doing for years, and nothing has changed very much. We just have to do it every year. Everybody bid.
I think so. I didn't sit down and compare the entire plan to the one we adopted in 2017 or 2012, but I suspect it's very similar. The historical data on windstorms, ice storms, tornadoes, floods, all of that has been updated in the past 5 years, so there'll be some new data in the plan about that. I think the mitigation actions are still the same as far as adopting codes, enforcing floodplain management ordinances. Those sorts of things are still the same as we adopted in 2017. FEMA/MEMA just updates this plan every 5 years, and we are required to adopt it to be eligible to apply for federal mitigation grants.
So really, we don't have a choice whether they want to adopt it.
You have a choice. You just, if you don't adopt it, you don't get any free money when it does become available.
And everybody in the county adopted, in the county.
Chief White, is that, I know Mr. Billy's correct, but I know the board would like to hear too, that I think you told me before the meeting, it's really the same thing, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Just like Mr. Billy said, yeah.
Yes, sir. After review, I didn't find any major changes. It pretty much falls in line with the 2017 mitigation plan.
For everyone's benefit, they just sent them out, and it's 133 pages. And you get it in one day, and they want to, I know Chief's had a chance at it, and so was Mr. Billy. Thank you for sending that to us. Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to adopt make a resolution to adopt the District 1 Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. We have a second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, now, we're down to 7. Citizens' remarks. Of course, these will be limited. Like I say, we have to do it for 3 minutes, or we would be here for days. Mr. Roy, would you come forward, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
I think all of y'all remember Mr. Roy.
I think I can make it up.
Evening, Mr. Roy. You're getting stiff, so am I.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here this evening. I am Roy Ridgway, owner of 1565 Dancy Boulevard. About 4 weeks ago, I spoke to you about the Medical Cannabis Act and our desire to cultivate and process at that location. The state license application process begins June 3rd. At the board meeting where Horn Lake opted out, it was stated that a committee would be formed to study the issue and consider opting back in. As time is approaching for the state applications to be filed, I would like to hear from each alderman on their position at this time, as if you plan to vote to opt in at some point, and what time frame you would consider this in. Or are your concerns on opting in? This is important as we have invested heavily in this location and need to find another location if we're not able to obtain a business license here. A business license is a prerequisite to apply for our state license, so it is an imperative to have one in a timely fashion. Otherwise, we will have to take the substantial losses on the Horn Lake investment we have made and move on due to the opting out here. I would appreciate your response and to have an idea of where we are in this process now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't think you can come up here and demand each alderman give you their vote right now. because the
Excuse me,
motion has
I
not
wasn't
been made.
demanding, I was just requesting. I didn't mean, that wasn't mean as a demand, sir.
How does that go? I've never heard that before a board meeting.
Mr. Mayor, the aldermen are certainly free and willing to express their opinion if they want to, but they're certainly not required.
No, I didn't think you would be required. I just was requesting that, my
Well, I
goodness.
misunderstood you. I thought
Excuse me, sir.
I thought you were doing a Putin ultimatum here.
No. I'm just stating we're positioned to where we are, and we need an answer. I just want to do business here, and if
Yes,
I
sir.
can work with you or not, but I'm under a time frame, and so I'm just requesting, can you give me some indication of what your intentions are?
Does anyone want to respond to Mr. Ridgway? Alderman Dupree. Now, remember, we're on time limit. We got 1 minute left.
I will tell you that the way to get my vote is not sell combustible marijuana.
Excuse me?
Do not sell combustible marijuana, the kind you smoke. You can sell any other form or fashion you want it, but smoking it, I can't vote for that.
Well, we're looking at the cultivation and processing. We are not running a dispensary, so we will not be selling it to individuals. We will be on the manufacturing side.
Right, the people who actually need it, who want to come get it medically, they can ingest it any other way than smoke.
Mayor,
Alderman Yance.
I can't give you what what the full board's going to do, but the committee has met. We came up with a groundwork for a ordinance and stuff to eventually to try to get approved. So that was distributed among the aldermen, and we're at the phase now where we're going to take everybody's input, adjust it, and then within the next board meeting or two, we plan on presenting something to the board to try to get the vote stopped back in.
At the next meeting, sir?
Within the next two meetings, yes.
Okay.
Because just like these last two proposed ordinances, we aren't lawyers, so once we come up with a plan, then it'll have to get looked at and make sure what we're doing is believed to be legal and within compliance with state law, and then we'll vote on it. You know, I can't say how the whole board
No,
will
in
vote.
regard to the zoning
But we are
question.
moving forward with what we said before.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Ridgway.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. I thought you were going to have a video.
Excuse me?
I thought you were going to have a video.
Well, yes, I do have one.
Well, it's too late now.
No,
But you
It's
told
a-
me you were going to come here and show a video.
it's a 2-minute video, and I feel obligated to bring it to the board's attention, but at the same time, I'm a little concerned because I don't want it to be misinterpreted, as I seem to have been already. So I have it right here, and I've talked to the guy. If you'd like to see it, 2 minute.
But when you told me that you wanted to appear, you told me I just want to show a video.
Well,
That's what you told me.
this is just the introduction here on the
Oh, that
question.
was, well,
Okay.
it's gone past the time, and it's really, if the board wants to see it, that's up to them.
Is it Cheech and Chong?
Yeah, it's, what it is, I'll tell you what it is, and you can decide. It is the attorney of Madison County, Mike Ebbs, speaking to the Board of Supervisors. And it's
Y'all
interesting
here?
because I think it's applicable to Horn Lake.
Could you, I'd be
You can send it to us.
happy to see, can you send it to us and we can review it?
If you would like.
I'm sure our IT guy can.
It's
do
just
that.
2 minutes, but whatever
Yeah.
you'd like.
Yeah.
Is it perhaps online, Mayor, I'm sorry. Is it perhaps online or somewhere we can access it anyway?
Well, I found it on the internet,
Yeah,
but I
we
don't
can
know.
access it, okay.
If you just tell them the internet address, please, Mr. Roy, that,
Excuse me?
just tell them what to look for on the internet. That's what Alderman Johnson was asking.
Well, I would give, you can take a copy of it here if you'd like.
Yeah, just give it to him.
Yeah, we want to see it, but we have a whole bunch of stuff.
I think I feel, when I saw it, it seemed applicable here, and I wanted to bring it to y'all's attention. That's why I got it here. It's not that I'm,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I really hate saying what I'm about to say, is that I warned y'all about these citizens' remark that they were going to try to put you on the spot, cold. You know, I warned y'all about that. Okay, Miss Jasmine Edwards.
All those are marked down.
Oh, they're all gone. All right, they're gone. Okay. Mayor Alderman correspondence. First, so far it's been a great meeting between the board, the attorney, the staff, and our citizens out there. Just a few quick things here. If I can find my right agenda sheet. This Thursday at 9 o'clock in the park, the Soil and Water Conservation Service is dedicating a tree to the memory of Mr. Roe Ross. If you remember, Mr. Ross has been an outstanding citizen of Sully County's entire life. He worked to get Horn Lake money from the Horn Lake Creek drainage, for soil and water conservation, and just a big supporter of everything in the Sully County. And that's going to be at 9 o'clock this Thursday morning in the park. The tree is down there by the baseball fields. Also, if you will notice, MDOT, thanks to Commissioner Caldwell, is now milling Goodman Road. And it's going to be overlaid, a $4 million job from Horn Lake Road all the way up to the expressway. They're going to try to do most of the work at night. And of course, you've already got people, as Alderman Young said, he ran some complaining about having to be traffic restricted. And I know that Chief Ryle is really going to be ready when it gets completed, because there'll be a racetrack out there. Everybody will be going up and down the roads. And then, on a more personal note, all of y'all know Miss Jenny over in the police department. Her son, Austin, is graduating from Lake Commerce this year, and he has received a scholarship to the Citadel. It's in South Carolina. That's quite an honor. And I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Mr. Drew and everybody involved, the police, the fire, Parks Department, everybody, on the nice event for the Magnolia Festival.
Well.
Very, very nice. Thank you very much. Good fireworks show, too. Okay, that's me. Alderman Klein, you have anything?
No, sir.
Alderman Bledsoe.
When they do that blacktop, they're not gonna try to put them medium strips in there, are they?
They hadn't said a thing about it.
Nah, I just wanna make sure.
No. If they do, it'll be an ambush.
They didn't say nothing about that either. And then
Yeah.
we started getting them.
Alderman Geis.
No, sir.
Alderman Boston. Alderman Johnson.
Yes, sir. Just want to remind everybody that Horn Lake High School graduation is Sunday, May 22nd at 3 o'clock for the community and for those of us who are up here who are going to attend. Also, I have a question for you, Chief Ryle. I'm so excited to have new code enforcement officers. I'm so excited about that. Have we looked at a weekend or after-hours schedule yet?
Yes, ma'am, we've had that discussion. We're waiting until the two new ones get completely cut loose. Our intent right now is to have one of them here on a Saturday. They'll do an alternating schedule, so it ain't the same person every Saturday. But one of them will be here on a Saturday, and then they'll split their weekdays that all four of them are here, to where they're not all four coming in at the same time, leaving at the same time. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything else, Alderman?
No, sir.
Alderman Dupree.
Yeah, as far as the code enforcement, this past Saturday, I saw 2 vehicles out. Was it 3? 3 vehicles out. That was pretty impressive.
Cool.
On a Saturday. Was that sanctioned? Or were they just out?
Should have been 3. There may have been community service this Saturday.
Okay.
And right now, currently, when we have community service scheduled, one of them does come to oversee the community service.
I got you. Second, if anybody's interested in the Optimus Club here in Horn Lake that's just got started, the next meeting is Tuesday, May 24th here at City Hall at 6 p.m. I think it's a great addition to the city, and the more people we get to join, it's just going to make Horn Lake look even better. So if anybody's out there interested, please come.
Great organization.
Yeah. TJ Cates, I really enjoyed last night. I appreciate you very much. I don't know if y'all know, but he's a movie star He's got several movies out, and he just opened up the haunted farmhouse. It was a really good show last night, and we appreciate you, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you.
That's all.
Alderman Young.
I guess we're gonna need to look at Chief Riles' overtime on the code enforcement to see if they were out last week.
I wouldn't mind.
I don't have anything.
Hey, pay him overtime.
What's gonna be
I do have one thing. I just remembered, you reminded me. Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah.
Please get involved in Neighborhood Watch. If you're not involved already, please get involved.
Thank you, sir. All right, Chief Ryle, did you have anything for the board and the public, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything tonight other than just thank the members of the board who recognized public safety during Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Week, which ends today.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Chief Ryle? Mr. Box, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor.
Do you have anything for the board, sir?
I do not have anything for the Board of Aldermen, nor are you this evening.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Box?
I do, Mayor.
Alderman Dupree.
The pump over at Twin Lakes Drive, have you rectified that?
Yes, they finished the install on that today.
Oh, great, thanks.
Anybody else? Alderman Young.
Mr. Box, thank you and your crews for coming out during the rainstorm and the epic flooding and cleaning out drains and everything. And I just appreciate everything your team's doing over there. It's made a definite transition. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman Young. We appreciate it.
Mayor, one more thing.
Alderman Dupree.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. Just my observation of the last month or so, 6 weeks, your guys have been out working really hard. I haven't seen that much, but I don't know what you're doing over there, but keep it up. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, it's good. Alderman Johnson. Excuse me, we already been that way. Mr. Coleman, you got anything for the board, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing that I want to talk about is that Mr. Argo contacted me and stated that the Magnolia Fest was record-setting in attendance. So he said we had over 10,000 come between the last 4 days.
Fantastic. And anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Coleman? And I thank everybody involved in that, fire, the police, Parks Department, everybody. Mr. Vance, you have anything for the board?
No, sir, not tonight, Mayor.
Anyone have any questions, Mr. Vance? Mr. Chad, you got anything?
No, nothing this evening. Thank you.
All right, yes, sir. Anybody have any for Mr. Chad? Hope your foot's okay. Mr. Jim, you have anything?
Just that I placed at your seats our latest sales tax that came in. You'll see that was if you go back and look at the history, that was the second highest ever for Horn Lake, 648,093. And both of the two highest are in this year, the 2022 year. So that was 15,000 over what it was for this same month last year. Again, this came in, and this is reflected of the month of March. So we are going strong. We are 354,000 plus above what we were this time last year.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Robinson? Please remember when you look at those sales tax figures, because I get all pumped up about them, and I have to remember with the inflation, that's what's causing some of it to do. The price of goods is actually going up. All right. If there is, Mr. Billy, you have anything, sir?
I don't, Mr. Mayor, but this seems like an appropriate time to recommend that the board meeting be extended since we still have executive session to go, and we're probably not going to make the 9:30 cutoff time.
Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Alderman Bledsoe. Do we have to second?
Second.
Who?
Here.
Alderman Klein, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostick.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries, 7 in favor, none opposed. Do we have a motion to go into closed determination?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
make a motion to go into closed determination.
Motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who? Alderman Dupree makes the second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Julie, will you do the roll call, please, ma'am?
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Aye. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostick.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries, 7 in favor, none opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all will excuse us just a moment, please.